I never believed in long-distance love until his smile reached me across the ocean. I never believed in long-distance love. Not in movies, not in stories, and certainly not in real life. Love, to me, always seemed like something that needed touch, presence, and all the little moments in between. I used to laugh at people who said, "We met online," until it happened to me. My name is Mia, and I live in Sydney, Australia. A coastal girl with a cautious heart, more comfortable behind a computer screen than in a crowded room. By day, I'm a freelance graphic designer, working with coffee in hand and my cat, Pixel, curled at my feet. Life was simple, even a little predictable. But one night, a storm rolled over Sydney and the internet went out for hours. The moment it flickered back to life, I remember jumping onto a gaming forum where I used to scroll through art contests. That night, a new post had just gone up, looking for a CEO partner for Mystic Shores. Casual, story-based. I suck at fighting games but love the lore, I smiled. Mystic Shores was one of those fantasy games I used to play to unwind, simple, pretty, and just nostalgic enough to feel warm. Without thinking, I replied, "Same. I always get lost in the towns and end up talking to NPCs for hours." 10 minutes later, I got a ping. "Liams, want to play? I'm online now." And just like that, I said yes. His voice was the first surprise, low, kind, with a natural laugh that came out often and easily. He was from Wellington, New Zealand, a place I'd only ever seen in travel magazines and movie backdrops. We played for hours that night. No pressure, no weird flirting, just two people laughing about getting our characters stuck in a cave because we didn't read the map. When I finally looked at the clock, it was nearly 3 a.m. Before we logged off, he said, "Hey, thanks for making tonight feel less heavy." I didn't ask what he meant. I just smiled and said, "Same here." The next night, he pinged me again. And the next, and the next. Days turned into weeks. What started as nightly gaming turned into daytime chats. We exchanged memes, music, playlists, and even photos of our cities. I sent him a picture of Bondi Beach at sunset. He replied with a snap of the misty green hills behind his house. He wasn't like the guys I'd dated before. He didn't ask what I looked like first. He didn't try to impress me with over-the-top compliments. He asked about my favorite color palette, whether I liked the smell of rain, and what I'd paint if I had a blank canvas and no deadline. I learned that he was a freelance app developer, working remotely, and recently recovering from a breakup. Not dramatic, just one of those relationships that fizzled with time and distance. Ironically, he said, distance had never scared him. Sometimes he'd call me without turning the video on just to hear my voice as he worked. Other times we'd fall asleep on a call, the sound of each other breathing more comforting than music. I started saving my favorite replies from him. Screenshots of our chat, a voice message where he sang half of an Ed Sheeran song and broke into laughter. I knew it was silly, but my heart was slowly stepping into unknown territory. Then came the night he asked something that made my stomach flip. "Mia, what would happen if we met for real?" I paused, staring at the blinking cursor in our chat. I typed, "I'd probably hug you for too long," then deleted it. Instead, I replied, "Guess we'd need a map again, huh?" He sent a laughing emoji, but it didn't hide the truth. We both wanted more. The conversation shifted. Deeper, realer. He told me about his parents' divorce, how he hated goodbyes, and why he always wore the same leather bracelet his late brothers. I told him about my anxiety, how I cancel plans often, and why I never show my art in galleries. With him, I never felt judged, only understood. But long distance hasn't come without doubts. I'd lie awake wondering, is this real? I'd imagine us walking through Sydney together. Would he hold my hand? Would he laugh the same way in person? Was I just building a dream? The turning point came one morning when he messaged me, "Liam's just booked tickets to Sydney. I'll be there in 3 weeks." My heart stopped. Then it raced. I reread the message a dozen times. Then I called him. When he answered, I didn't say hello. I just whispered, "Are you serious?" He replied, "Dead serious. I want to know what it feels like to stand next to you without a screen." I cried, not out of sadness, but because, for the first time, the impossible didn't feel so far away. We started planning, me nervously picking outfits and researching where to take him. He joked that he just wanted to sit on Bondi Beach and eat fish and chips with me. And while those 3 weeks crawled by slowly, they were filled with more hope than I'd felt in years. I had no idea then how that first hello across the ocean would change my life, but I was about to find out. 3 weeks, 21 days. That's how long I had to prepare myself for the moment when Liam would walk off a plane and into my real life. I spent those days riding waves of excitement, panic, and wonder. Would he look the same? Would he smell like pine and coffee like he once described? Would he still laugh at my sarcasm, or would it sound different without a screen in between? But through the nerves, one feeling stood stronger than the rest: hope. A kind of giddy hope I hadn't felt since childhood. I was finally going to meet the person who had become the best part of my everyday. We continued our nightly calls as usual. But there was a shift now. He'd tease me about what I'd wear when I picked him up at the airport. I'd send him pictures of cafes and restaurants, asking which one we should visit first. Sometimes, late at night, we'd talk about things we hadn't dared to before, like what it might feel like to fall asleep side by side, to touch each other's hands for real, to walk in silence together without the pressure to fill the void with emojis or words. And in those moments, I felt something growing. Not just attraction, not just curiosity, but something deeper. Something neither of us had named yet. The day before his flight, he messaged me one last time before boarding. "Liam's, I'm nervous. Not because of the flight, because I've never wanted anything to work out this badly." I stared at those words for minutes. Then I replied, "Yeah, me too. But I believe in us. I really do." He landed in Sydney on a Sunday morning. The terminal was buzzing with life, but my world was muted, as if everything else blurred around me. I stood there gripping my phone like it was the only thing holding me up. And then I saw him, tall, messy dark hair, backpack slung lazily over one shoulder, scanning the crowd with sleepy eyes. Our eyes met, and for a moment, just a moment, everything stilled. He smiled. I ran. No hesitation. No second guesses. I dropped my bag and ran into his arms like every romantic cliché I'd ever rolled my eyes at. And when he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "Hey, I missed you," I knew none of those moments had been wasted. He was real, warm, solid, and I could feel the thrum of his heart against mine. We spent the rest of the day walking around Sydney, completely forgetting every place we had planned to visit. It didn't matter. We laughed more than we spoke. Every pause was filled with glances and tiny smiles. I found myself brushing his arm just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. T Bondi Beach. We sat with our toes in the water. He skipped stones. I sketched him trying to capture the shape of his jaw, the way his eyebrows crinkled when he laughed, he noticed. Drawing me already? You really are the romantic one. I'm documenting proof you exist, I joked. He looked at me with something new in his eyes then. Not just amusement, but affection. Deep, focused, unguarded, and then he leaned in. It wasn't dramatic. No music playing, just the sound of waves and children in the distance. But when our lips met, I swear I forgot where we were. His kiss tasted like salt and sun, like patience rewarded. That night, we stayed at my apartment. He slept on the couch, insisting like a gentleman, and we talked until a.m. Just like old times, but this time with the soft glow of the same lamp lighting both our faces. In the morning, I found him standing on my balcony, coffee in hand, wrapped in my blanket. He turned, smiled and said, I could get used to waking up like this. For 5 days, we lived like we'd always been together, exploring the city, sharing food, talking about everything and nothing. Every glance held a universe of meaning. But then came the 6th day, the goodbye. I tried to be strong. We promised we wouldn't cry. But when I stood there at the departure gate, watching him disappear beyond the security line, something inside me cracked. It wasn't just about missing him. It was the fear of slipping back into the uncertainty of distance, of going back to sleeping alone, laughing into a phone, and pretending it was enough. That night, when I got home, everything felt too quiet. Pixel curled up in my lap, purring softly as I stared at the door, wishing he'd turn the handle and walk back in. But then my phone buzzed. A picture came through. It was a sketch of me, sitting at Bondi, looking at the ocean. Liams, I started drawing again. Because of you, I smiled through my tears. Because even though the distance had returned, so had the certainty. This wasn't just some digital fantasy. This was real, and I'd wait for as long as it took. Love grows in the soft moments, but distance tests everything. After Liam returned to New Zealand, we were back to square one, but now with memories that made the separation even harder. The feel of his hand in mine, the way he smiled, without a screen's delay, the warmth of him dozing off beside me on the couch, those things lived in my bones now, and they made every video call feel a little emptier. At first, we kept up the rhythm. Calls every evening, text through the day, shared playlists, food selfies, long voice notes. He sent me photos of the mountain near his home dusted with fresh snow, and I sent him pictures of my latest sunset sketch. But reality has a cruel way of slipping in when love is busy dreaming. Liam's job picked up speed. His team had landed a major international client, and suddenly his schedule shifted. Late-night meetings, urgent fixes, client calls that ran into the early hours. Our daily routine began to unravel. One evening, I waited for his call like usual. We always connected at PM my time. But that night, the call didn't come. I waited until 9, then 10. At 11:30, I texted, "Meow, everything okay? I miss you." No reply. I curled up in bed with Pixel, trying not to let the anxiety spiral. Maybe he fell asleep. Maybe he was stuck on a call. Maybe I fell asleep holding my phone. It buzzed at 3:14 a.m. Liam's, sorry, long meeting, crashed right after. I'm so sorry. I miss you too. So much. And I believed him. I really did. But something had shifted. The next few weeks were a slow drip of miscommunication and emotional distance. We'd talk one day, and then miss the next. 2. Our once-long conversations became quick check-ins. How was your day? Busy, but good. Yours. Same. Tired. Miss you. Me too. Sleep tight. He sounded more tired than before. Distant not in location, but in tone. I tried to stay calm. I gave him space. I didn't want to be the needy girlfriend who demanded constant attention across oceans. But inside, my heart was aching with silence. 1. Saturday morning, I logged into our shared gaming account. I hadn't been on in weeks. And there I saw it. He'd been playing. Not just that he'd played with someone else. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't even jealousy. It was something deeper. It was the realization that our world was no longer just ours. That night, I called him. He answered on the third ring. Hey, he said, voice soft. Hey, I replied, biting my lip. Can we talk? He paused. Yeah. What's up? I miss you. I miss us. And I know you're busy, but I feel like I'm losing you. There was silence on the other end. For too long, finally, he sighed. Mia, I don't want to hurt you, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm barely keeping up with work, with everything, and I don't know how to balance it all. My chest tightened. So what are you saying? I'm saying, maybe we just need a bit of space. Not a breakup. Just a pause. Until things settle down. A pause, like pressing play on a love story only when it's convenient. I didn't cry. Not then. I just said, okay, if that's what you need. We ended the call quietly. No fights. No dramatic words. Just a slow silence that echoed louder than any goodbye. The next few days were a blur. I kept myself busy, design jobs, cleaning, even starting a watercolor journal. Anything to avoid the ache in my chest. I told myself to be strong, to be understanding. But every night, I reached for my phone. Every night, I stopped myself from texting him. Until one night I wrote a message. I get that you're tired. That life is messy. But I didn't fall for a perfect version of you. I fell for the boy who listened when I was anxious, who watched sunsets with me through a screen, who made me laugh when I forgot how. I don't want a pause. I want us even when it's hard. I stared at it. Then I deleted it. Maybe he needed time. Maybe I did too. But deep down, I feared the truth that sometimes love isn't just tested by distance. It's tested by timing. And right now, ours was unraveling thread by thread. It had been 3 weeks since we'd last spoken. 3 weeks since that call, since the word pause hung in the air like a ceiling fan spinning too slowly to cool anything. Time passed, but nothing healed. Not really. I kept myself busy. I worked, drew, cleaned out drawers I hadn't opened in years. I even deleted our chat thread once, then panicked and recovered it from the archive a minute later. But even with distance, his presence lingered. The way he used to say meow with that kiwi lilt whenever I pouted. The heart-sung voice messages. The messages he'd end with 3 dots when he wasn't sure how to say goodbye. He wasn't gone. He just wasn't he. And maybe that was worse. Then one Thursday afternoon, while I was sketching to CAF near Circular Quay, my phone buzzed with a message I hadn't dared hope for. Liam's. Hey, I'm in Sydney. I'm outside. I froze. My pencil slipped, making an accidental slash across my sketch pad. Outside, I rushed to the window. There he was, standing across the street, backpack over one shoulder again, his face searching, uncertain until his eyes found mine. Our gazes locked and I bolted out the door, into the street, nearly collided with a cyclist, and then he was in front of me. We stood inches apart. In no words, just breath. His eyes looked tired but warm. His smile was small but real. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," I whispered back. I didn't want space. Not really. I just didn't know how to carry the weight of everything. "And still hold you too." I nodded, blinking back tears. "You don't have to carry me. Just don't put me down." He reached out and touched my cheek like he was scared I might vanish. And then, we were in each other's arms again. But this time felt different. Not like a first hug, more like a return. We went back to my apartment. Pixel greeted him like an old friend. He laughed and crouched down, petting her. "Still thinks she owns the place, huh?" "She does," I said, grinning. That night, we didn't go out. We didn't need to. We ordered takeout, spread a blanket on my tiny balcony, and watched the stars. Liam told me everything. About how his work had nearly swallowed him whole. How he didn't reach out because he felt ashamed, like he was failing us both. "But you were never a burden," he said. "You were my safe place." I just forgot how to lean into that when things got hard. I cried. He did too. We didn't try to fix everything in one night. We just sat there, shoulder to shoulder, hands interlocked, breathing the same air. The next few days were like a dream we'd hit pause on and finally resumed. This time, slower, more intentional. We visited the places we missed the first time: the rocks, Darling Harbour, a hidden bookstore he found through some travel blog. He bought me a leather sketchbook. I painted him into every page. There was one night we sat on the ferry to Manly, the wind tangling my hair, his arm around me, and I whispered, "If this is all we ever get, a few days here, a few weeks there, is it enough?" He looked at me like he saw right through to the part of me that feared everything, and he said, "No, it's not enough. But I don't want enough. I want forever. And I'm ready to fight for it now." Those words planted a seed in me. Not of fantasy, but of faith. The kind that isn't loud or dramatic. The kind that's built through showing up, again and again, even if it's from across an ocean, even if it's through a screen. Because sometimes love isn't about always being together. It's about always choosing each other even when it's hard. And for the first time in weeks, I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes, because the person I'd been waiting for, he was here, and he wasn't going anywhere. Love is not a straight line. It curves, loops. Sometimes it fades into silence before finding its way back. Liam stayed in Sydney for 10 days. 10 perfect, fragile days, and then he left again. Back to Wellington. Back to real life. Back to meetings, deadlines, responsibilities. We made promises, like we always did. We'll call every night. No more long silences. Next time you come here, maybe the time after that. I don't leave. We meant every word. But love, like people, can get tired even when it's true. 81st, it felt easy again. Knowing we'd already survived one stretch apart, we were bolder, braver. We flirted through voice notes, had matching mugs made, started planning a road trip for summer. We shared digital calendars so we wouldn't miss calls. And for a while, it worked, but slowly, quietly, the shift returned. It began with small things. A missed call here, a one-word reply there. Days when our video chats were cut short with, "Sorry babe, I've got to hop on a client call." I told myself not to panic, that he was just busy, but it kept happening, and not just once. There were nights when I sat by the window, holding my phone, watching the clock crawl past 9 p.m., our usual call time, only to receive a quick text, "Liam's sorry, brain dead. Can we skip tonight?" I'd respond, meow, of course. Rest. Love you. But inside, I didn't rest. I spiraled. Was I too much again? Was I not enough? My friends told me to be patient. My heart told me to hold on. But my soul, it was fraying. I didn't say anything for a while. I didn't want to be the problem. That then came the night that broke me. It was our video date anniversary, exactly 1 year since our first Mystic Shores game. I'd planned a surprise, dressed up, candles lit, my laptop camera framed just right. I even wore the necklace he'd given me during his last visit. I waited and waited 30 minutes. Then an hour. No ping. No message. Nothing. At midnight, I finally sent, meow, did you forget? 2 hours later, the reply came, Liam's, I'm sorry. I really am. Just been swamped. I didn't realize the date. Can we do tomorrow? I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because something inside me had gone still. The next morning, I woke up to another message, Liam's, Mia. Are we okay? Please don't shut me out. I know I messed up. I don't want to lose you, but the truth was, I didn't know if we were okay. I felt like I was holding all the weight of this love in my 2 hands, while he kept running faster and faster, chasing deadlines I couldn't compete with. I didn't want to be an obligation. I wanted to be a priority. That night, I started writing, not to him, to myself, a letter I never intended to send. Dear Liam, do you remember when you first messaged me? You said, want to play? And I had no idea how that small ping would change my world. We've grown so much. We've survived time zones, anxiety, loneliness, and even silence. I love you. I probably always will. But lately, I feel like I'm loving you alone, like I'm filling in the blanks of our conversations with imagination and hope. I know you're tired. I know you're trying. But so am I, and I can't be the only one pulling the rope in this tug-of-war. Maybe we just need to pause again. Or maybe this is where our lines finally diverge. I didn't sign it. I didn't send it. But it existed. And that terrified me, because once you start writing goodbyes in your mind, it's hard to unwrite them. Still, I waited for him to prove me wrong, for one message to pull me back from the ledge, but it didn't come that night or the next, and slowly, my love began to feel like an echo in an empty room, not gone, just unheard. Some love stories don't end with a bang. They fade quietly, like a song played too many times, until you forget the melody ever made you feel something. That's what it felt like with Liam. The silence between us grew heavier. I didn't press send on that letter, but I also didn't message him again. And he didn't message me either. Days turned to weeks. We went from soulmates to strangers with 8 shared paths, connected only by old chat logs and photos buried in our phones. I tried to forget. I even told myself to move on. I immersed myself in work, took on extra clients, went out with friends. Even Ray downloaded that dating app I swore I'd never touch again. I matched with someone once. A nice guy, kind eyes, but when he asked me what I liked to do for fun, I hesitated. Because the only answer that came to mind was, talk to Liam. And Liam was gone. Or so I thought. Until one afternoon I got a message, but it wasn't from him. It was from his best friend, Kale. Kyle. Hey, Mia. I didn't know who else to tell. I found your number from Liam's phone. He had a climbing accident. It was bad. He's in the hospital. The world spun. I reread the message over and over, Then I called Cale. He answered immediately. His voice was frantic. He was hiking near Queenstown. The cliff path gave out. He hit his head. They airlifted him. He's stable, but unconscious. I couldn't breathe. I hadn't spoken to Liam in almost a month. And now I might never speak to him again. Without thinking, I booked a flight. I didn't pack properly. I didn't tell my clients. I just left, because when someone you love is lying in a hospital bed, nothing else matters. When I arrived in New Zealand, Cale picked me up from the airport. He looked like he hadn't slept. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded as we drove. In silence, the hospital was sterile and cold. I hated everything about it. Until I saw him. Liam. Pale. Hooked up to IVs. Bruises across his temple. Lips dry and cracked. My heart shattered. "Hi," I whispered. Kneeling by the bed, he didn't move. Not even a flicker. I took his hand gently. It was warm but limp. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I whispered, "You promised me forever, remember? You can't back out now. You're not allowed." I stayed by his side every day, reading to him, talking about the weather, the stupid memes I saw online, even reading him the letter I never sent except this time. I finished it. "Maybe we just need to pause again. But if you come back to me, I promise I won't let go." The nurses said they didn't know when or if he'd wake up. I hated those words. Hope isn't easy when you're sitting in silence, but I clung to it anyway. On the fourth day, I was dozing in the chair beside him when I heard a sound. A soft groan. I bolted upright. His fingers twitched. "Liam," I whispered, grabbing his hand. "I'm here. I'm right here." His eyes fluttered, then opened, and there barely, softly he smiled. "Hey, Aussie girl," he croaked. I broke down in tears, sobbing into his hand like I'd been holding my breath for weeks and had finally let it out. He squeezed my fingers weakly, but it was there. He was back. The doctor said it was a miracle. I said it was love. In the days that followed, he regained more strength. Every hour he was awake, I stayed by his side. We didn't talk about the silence or the time apart, not yet. But one night, as the machines beeped softly in the background, he looked at me and said, "I thought, when I fell, that it was the end. And the only thing I regretted was not calling you, not telling you that I was scared, that I missed you, that I loved you." I held his hand tightly and whispered, "You still can." He looked at me, eyes full of unshed tears. "I love you, Mia. Always did." Even when I was too broken to show it, I leaned in, kissed his forehead and said, "Then let's stop breaking each other. Because sometimes it takes almost losing someone to remember why you chose them in the first place." And in that hospital room, with the hum of machines and the scent of antiseptic in the air, I chose him. Again. And this time, I wouldn't let go. Wellington's hospital smelled like too many stories cut short. But ours wasn't ending here. Liam's recovery was slow. The bruises faded before his energy returned. He was sore, weak, tired. But each day, he was more himself. A little more of the Liam I fell in love with, the sarcastic grin, the shy smirk. When I caught him staring, the way he said "Mia" just to watch me roll my eyes. The accident had broken more than his bones, it had broken the walls between us. We never talked much about the weeks of silence before it all happened. Maybe we were both too ashamed. Maybe we were just relieved we didn't let the silence become the final word. But the thing about pain is, it either pushes you away or pulls you in. And for us, it pulled us in. We were quiet for the first few days after he woke up, holding hands, sharing looks, A few soft laughs. There was so much love in the air, it didn't need words right away. But one evening, as I was adjusting the blanket around his legs, he said, "Can I ask you something honest?" I nodded. "Why do you come?" I blinked. "Because you're you." Because you almost my throat tightened. Because I couldn't not. He looked away, then back. "I thought I lost you." After the silence, after I kept messing up, I sat beside him, folding my fingers through his. "You didn't lose me, Liam. You just let go for a while. I was always here, waiting." He exhaled slowly. "I was scared." Me too, I thought. If I kept you at arm's length, I wouldn't disappoint you. But that only made things worse. "We both got lost," I whispered. "But we found each other again." "That has to mean something." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I want to do better, Mia. I want to fight for this for you. But not just with promises. With plans." I smiled. "Then let's make some." And we did. For the first time, we talked about what came next without dodging, without cushioning, without pretending love alone was enough. Because love needs air, time, effort, and a plan. Liam's doctor said he needed 3 months of rest before he could fly again. So I stayed. I rented a tiny studio apartment a block from the hospital, worked remotely during the day, visited him every evening. We created new rituals, card games on his hospital tray, podcasts together. I read him chapters from the fantasy book series we both adored. Every night, before I left, I kissed his forehead. Every morning, he texted me a new reason he was grateful. Sometimes it was silly. "Liam's grateful you smuggled me real coffee. Hospital tea is a crime." Sometimes it was raw. "Liam's grateful you didn't give up on me, even when I gave up on myself." One night, about 3 weeks into recovery, he stood with help and walked to the window with me for the first time. The view overlooked the city skyline, twinkling like a sky flipped upside down. He leaned into me, whispering, "I used to look at this view alone. Now I don't want to see it without you again." I turned, cupped his face gently, and said, "Then don't." Later that week, he did something I didn't expect. He gave me a key to my place. He said nervously, "No pressure. Just in case you want to stay longer or come back." I took it, slid it onto my chain, and smiled. That key wasn't just metal. It was trust. We were building again, not from scratch but from scars. And that's how the strongest love is built. Not from fairy tales, but from moments where two broken people choose to heal side by side. Love is made in tiny moments, the kind no one sees. Late night forehead kisses, shared silence while brushing teeth. The way someone remembers how you take your tea without asking. That's what the weeks in Wellington became for us. Quiet, real, honest. Liam was healing not just from the fall, but from everything we'd left unsaid over months of distance. He moved back into his apartment, and I started spending more time there than at the studio I'd rented. We'd gone from two people in different countries to 2 toothbrushes in one bathroom, and yet a quiet tension lingered beneath our smiles. One night, I found him sitting at his desk, sketching. The room was lit only by the warm desk lamp. He didn't hear me walk in until I placed my hands on his shoulders. He smiled up at me. "Didn't realize how much I miss drawing," he said, "or having someone who makes me want to create again." I kissed his temple. "You're getting really good again." Then I paused, bit my lip. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. What happens when I go back to Sydney?" The room went still. He lowered his pencil. His shoulders sank, I've been thinking about that every night," he said. "And I hate every version where you're not beside me." Me too. That night, we talked until the sky turned pink with sunrise. About moving, about merging lives, about fear. What if it doesn't work? I asked. He looked me in the eyes. Then we figure it out together, like we always do. It wasn't just about living in the same city. It was about finally choosing each other, without hesitation, without the buffer of someday. So we made a plan. Liam would come to Sydney in 2 months permanently. He could work remotely. He'd already started freelancing more and reducing his contract load. His lease was up. The timing was finally right. "I'll find a place," he said. "We don't have to rush anything. But I want to build a life with you. Side by side. Same time zone. Same kitchen. Same bed." I laughed. Cried a little too. Because this wasn't just a dream anymore. This was happening. We spent the next few weeks preparing. He began packing. I flew back briefly to tidy up some work, find a bigger place, and set things up for him. We'd video call as he held up clothes. "Should I bring this hoodie? The one you wore the first time we met in game?" "Definitely." When I returned to New Zealand to help him move, his apartment looked smaller. Not because it had changed, but because we were no longer trying to squeeze love into messages and calls. We were holding it, living it. The day we left Wellington together, we stood in his now empty apartment one last time. "Nervous?" I asked, lacing my fingers with his. He shook his head. Excited, terrified, but mostly grateful. "Why?" He pulled me close. "Because I almost didn't get to do this, to live this. And now that I can, I'm never letting it go." As the plane lifted off, I looked out the window and thought of all the nights we spent longing, wishing, doubting. Now, there was no more when or if, only now. When we landed in Sydney, the sun was setting, turning the sky soft gold. He leaned in and whispered, "We made it." I smiled. Because yes, we had. Moving in together was the easy part. It was staying together, truly learning each other, that was the real journey. Liam settled into life in Sydney faster than either of us expected. He loved the beach walks, the CAFS, the way the light hit the buildings at dusk. He found a working space near the harbour and quickly became a regular. I watched him fall in love with my city, and I realized I was falling in love all over again. With him, with us, with the life we were finally creating. But love, even the strongest kind, isn't immune to growing pains. One evening, about 6 weeks after the move, we had our first real fight. It started with something small. He forgot to pick up the groceries. I had a deadline and was already stressed. The tension bubbled up, old fears wrapped in new voices. It's always me thinking ahead. I'm doing the best I can. Mia. Then maybe your best isn't enough right now. The words hung in the air, sharp, unintended. I saw his face fall. Saw the same Liam who'd stood by my hospital bed, now backing away like I'd become someone else. I turned away, blinking tears, silent. Then his voice, quiet but steady. "Don't run from me. Not now. Not like before." I turned back to him. My voice cracked. "I'm not trying to run. I'm just scared. We finally have this, and I'm terrified of ruining it." He stepped closer, took my hand. "Then let's ruin it together and rebuild it every single day. That's what love is, isn't it?" I nodded, leaning into him. Because it was. Love isn't constant bliss. It's waking up and choosing each other even after the hard days. Especially after the hard days. Later that week, Liam surprised me. I came home to candles, soft music, a familiar scent, lavender and lemon. The one I always sprayed on my pillow before bed. He stood in the middle of the room, holding something small in his hand. Not a ring, not yet. A keychain. It was engraved with the coordinates of where we first met digitally, and beneath it, from a ping to a promise. He handed it to me. I know it's cheesy, but I never want us to forget where we began. I blinked tears away and whispered, I never could. We danced that night in the living room, barefoot, laughing, a little offbeat. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Later, as we lay on the couch tangled in blankets, he said, do you ever think about the what ifs? What if I never messaged you? What if I didn't come to Sydney? What if you hadn't come to the hospital? I looked at him. Soft smile, gentle touch. All the time, I said. But mostly I think about how lucky we were to get it wrong, just long enough to get it right. He kissed my forehead, and in that moment, I knew home wasn't a place, not a city, not a postcode, not even a country. Home was this man, this love, this life we built together, one message, one plane ride, one choice at a time. And through the tears, the silences, the almost goodbyes, we made it. From oceans apart, two hearts aligned, forever. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment snow, so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.